It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show, and today's date is June 6th. It is D-Day, almost the name of my brother. D-Day, how many years ago is that? Boy, it's a bunch of times. What is it? How many? That was in 44. Is that 81 years ago? Is that right, John? 81 years?
Yeah, hey, you're the one with the recent kayfabe birthday. You were theoretically alive back then, according to your kayfabe birthday.
I was 9 when that happened. Okay.
And speaking of our show, Brad, thanks to Scott Fawn for the shout-out during his TWMP Daily yesterday. A great segment between him and Jake Rosen. Jake noted my eternal sadness about Mary Elizabeth Coleman leaving the Missouri legislature. But thanks to Scott for the shout-out yesterday.
And he gave us a nice shout-out on Twitter as well, too, or X, whatever it was, right?
Yeah, we had a great segment. And thanks to everybody who promotes the show. Scott, obviously, is a dear friend of the show and just a dear friend in general. Yesterday, Brad, and, we don't like to come on here and do the chest thumping thing, but, it's important to note that thanks to folks sharing our show, I think we had more listeners to our show yesterday than we've had, and at least as far back as YouTube goes, 90 days or so. So thanks to everyone for sharing the show.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting anecdote that came out from Nick Perry. Perryman, is it? Is that what Perryman?
Yeah, Perryman,
right?
Yep.
Okay. He said to me, I listen to your podcasts on YouTube, but why don't you have a regular podcast? And I go, we do. Just go to bjshow.co. And he literally grabbed his phone and he scrolled down. I says, oh, okay, I see where it's at. I said, it's right there.
And I think Nick's point, so thank you, Nick, by the way, for inquiring of that. And Brad, I asked you a few months ago why Red Circle doesn't post to Apple Podcasts. And your answer was it should.
Yeah, but it doesn't. I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, which is a non-answer. But yeah, so, we're not going to. That's a lost cause, probably getting you to do that. But thank you to Nick for pointing that out. And yes, you can go to bjshow.co to hear if you're just looking for audio files. You can find them there.
There. Okay. My timing was the multi-chamber event at the Foundry. Have you ever been to the Foundry Art Center, John, in St. Charles?
No, where is it?
It's really cool. It's on the extreme north end of Main Street. It's actually on the extreme north end of Front Street because Front Street ends, it curves around there. And if you know the history of this was the old ACR place, and the Foundry Art Center was literally the old Foundry building where they had the molten metal and they made different various parts of the train cars and things like that. Now, here's the downside in what's happened to St. Charles, and I should have given Dan Borgmeyer crap about this. They got their bond issue passed, and here we go again. They have this beautiful ice. I'm going to say again, I'm going to say right now, Dan, I think this is a waste of taxpayer money. If you were standing here in front of me, I'd say the same thing. They have a very nice city hall in downtown St. Charles on 2nd Street. Yeah, I don't know what the cross street is, but on one side of the street, it's the county courts building. The other side is the city hall for the city of St. Charles, okay? Very modernistic building. They don't like it. So they passed a bond issue, and they're building a new place. They're tearing down part of the ACR building, and they're having this. And there was some consultant they brought in. They said, well, don't just call it a new city hall. Call it a community center. So they say, and we need to promote the fact that part of this building, a large part of this building, will not just be the city hall; it'll be the Veterans Center. So, we need a Veterans Center.
Oh, who can say no to veterans?
Right,
like saying no to children.
Right? Who can say no to the veterans? And I'm not making fun of veterans, but it's one of those things where there was some political wonk that came in and said you need to put veterans into the mix.
Yeah. So tell us about the building, Brad.
Well, the problem is, and this is what's sort of sad about it, is if you know your geography in downtown St. Charles, if you take 2nd Street all the way down, if you take it, you keep going north and 2nd Street, and you go through Frenchtown, and then it curves around, you end up there at 370. They've closed it because they're demolishing the ACR building, and they've closed 2nd Street. So where Front Street comes into 2nd Street, it curves around there. People know exactly what I'm talking about. From that point north, it's closed. So you can't get down 2nd Street anymore. And what's bad about that is there's a lot of small businesses down there, a lot of small businesses on 2nd Street. That Frenchtown area is really going through a revival. There's a nice little, one of the guys that I used to, matter of fact, his kids went to school with my kids. He has a cute little, I don't know what to call it, coffee shop. It's called Bon Vivant or something like that, some French name. And a lot of people love it. But you can't get there anymore. You can if you are a veteran St. Charles person and you know how to get around in that part of St. Charles.
But you're saying it's an unnecessary hurdle to get to these businesses. See, this is what bothers me about this kind of stuff, is they close it down
And as I stood there, I actually got in my car and looked down. There was nothing on 2nd Street. It's like remember I told you the crazy story about Mark Reardon complained about the fact that he lives out there in the High Ridge area or something like that, and there's a street, there's a road that the county shut down, and they're going to rehab it, but they shut it down, but they didn't do anything for like a month, and people were just...
Yeah, like, so what's the point of shutting it down? Yeah, that was around, what'd you say, like 44 and 141, right?
Yeah, it's south of there. If you know where Kraus Farm is, we talked about that. Well, here's the same thing. I look down 2nd Street, and I go like, okay, there's nothing blocking 2nd Street. Now, I know people are going to say, well, but they're working during the day. Okay, fine. Take the barricades down in the evening. Take them down on Saturday and Sundays so that, the businesses don't be hindered by the fact that, because you know how some people are. I'm one of those guys, you throw up a barricade in front of me, I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to get around it. I'm going to figure out how to get around it. Right.
And Brad, you were talking about your timing for the event. So go ahead. Let's get back to the Foundry. Let's stay on track.
4 to 6 was the Foundry, and 6 to 8 was the DePere thing. So obviously the situation I ran into was I stayed till about 5:45 at the Foundry Art Center, got in my car, and then I hit the tail end of rush hour going south on 270. You know about that. And it took me probably a good half an hour to get from St. Charles down to the place. And then when I got out of my car, well, actually came in on one side. The protesters were there. And then I parked near the end of the parking lot, and the protesters were on the other side of the building. I go, I got to go talk to these people. I got to go take some pictures. So I was outside for probably 20 minutes, and by the time I got inside, it was probably 6:40. So I didn't get the beginning of the event or stuff like that. But it was a full house. They packed the place. They were standing room only, and very well-behaved crowd, except for the two people that walked in front of me yelling and screaming.
Yeah, and think of the logistics of putting together an event like that, of confirming the legislators, making sure you get the hosts, making sure you get, there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Well, there's 3 different names that should be thanked for this.
And who are they, Brad?
Niall Stevens.
And so this is day 2 of this. The joke about repeating Niall's name, can you fill me in on that?
He told me he was going to pay me for every time I mention his name.
Oh, wow. It would be the first $1 you ever earned from this radio station. Way to go, Brad.
Yes. So I didn't see him. I've never met him in person, but, so I didn't. But once again, the event was going on. And quite honestly, I don't want to say I'm an old guy, but, the nursing home closes their doors at 8 o'clock. So, and, if you don't make the 8 o'clock roll call, you have to sleep in the parking lot. So I got out of there a little bit early. But, great event. And see, this is what's frustrating to me. And I'll say this right now. John, you got on my case a little bit about the fact that I made you thought they were disingenuous comments about the new KLIS when I was critical of the Gordon and Kelly show in the afternoon, when it sounded like Gordon's on the microphone, but Kelly's in the toilet somewhere. She's in the hallway.
Yeah, and it was, remind me, Brad, I think that was their second day on the air, right?
Oh, it was their first day on the air. Okay.
So on their first day they had some audio issues.
Okay,
I get you.
Now, I will say this, John, and I will give them credit. First day, I saw the thing live, and I looked at their microphone situation. They were using the typical TV kind of, and if you know the whole deal, they've got a really elaborate set, and it's very fancy looking. I'm thinking to myself, this ain't radio, but, but it's very fancy. They're dressed up. She's dressed up like she's going out in the town. He's dressed up like he's going to go to a prom or something like that. And they had this intro. They have cocktails, and it's, oh my God, we're just so nice. And I'm not making fun of them. It's just sort of like, okay, this is like the old KFS.
Yeah, and you were making a broader point. You said your preface was that I get on your case, but then you were going to make a different point. We're going to keep you on track today, Brad.
On Monday, the audio sounded horrible. He sounded on a scale of 1 to 10. He was a 6. She was like a 2. And then on Tuesday, they went with some microphones, because I went and reviewed the videos, because they do this live and then the videos are saved on YouTube. On Tuesday, they went with a couple of desk mics. One pointed at him, one pointed at her. Once again, pretty bad. On Wednesday, they went with some other kind of microphones, which sounded like poop on a stick. Yesterday, it looks like they went out and they bought those DJI square little, you've seen those little mics everybody's using now. They're like for videos.
Yeah. You've talked about them on the air. Yeah.
Right. And they clipped them. He had them onto his lapel. He's wearing a suit jacket, and she had a little dress that had like a little collar on it. And they had their little DJI microphones on it, and it sounded excellent. So
that's awesome.
So 4 days in, and if you go to it, but here's the crazy thing, and I think I'm a pretty good YouTube guy, and I know what's going on. For some reason, I can't find their show live. When I went to look at it yesterday, it doesn't come up. And because I click on their link on their website, and then you go to the thing, and you click on their other link, and it says live, and it's not there. But yet, the replay of the show was there last night. So, am I missing something, John? I mean,
yeah, I think so. So, for example, folks who want to watch from 6 to 8 a.m., you could go to Lou Info on YouTube, and you can watch Vic Faust's show. So, I'm guessing, Brad, I haven't tried it with the show that you're talking about in your city. I haven't tried that, but maybe they had a technical issue or something like that. But Vic does a great job. Vic and producer Projo do a great job. You can watch it live. And then, Brad, if you go to, for folks who don't know, when there's live broadcasts, afterwards, you have to click on the tab that says live, and then you can watch the rebroadcast of the live show.
Okay, I'm on louinfo.com. I clicked on the watch live, then I clicked on the thing that says click here to watch us on demand on YouTube. I clicked on that, then I'm into live. I hit live, and I see, is it Arch City now? Is that is that the show?
Yeah, that's Vic's show.
Okay, it shows live and shows there's 4 people watching, which is
there's 2 different chat rooms.
Okay, there they are.
KLIS,
And now where here, hold on.
chat room.
Here. I'm going to do something I shouldn't do. Okay, hold on a minute.
So we're on the air,
that.
and
They got the corpse flower Lucy is at the Missouri Botanical Garden. We got that from the chat line. By the way, they're beginning some Alzheimer's events over at the Botanical Garden as well. An absolutely beautiful place. That's coming up this weekend. Also, I was told that 5 cheetah cubs, Vic, at the St. Louis Zoo were born. If you wanted to go out and check
am I
them
breaking
out,
any law by doing that, John, you think?
No, but I mean, I think that's probably enough. I mean, people can go to Lou Info. I try to put on Vic's show between, if I have a few minutes, between 6 and 7, just to see what he's going to talk about that day. So yeah, you can watch louinfo.com.
Now, see, I will give him a compliment. He's got a Shure SM7B, which is right up against his mouth. His audio sounds perfect. See,
that's great.
And I'm not.
Thank you for the technical talk.
Well, no, I'm not trying to diss, what Kelly and Gordon are trying to do. I'm just trying to say that, I was taught this a long time ago, and I think it still holds true. I get what David Green and the crew are trying to do. They're trying to turn this into not just a radio station, more than a radio station. But you can't forget the fact that it is, first and foremost, a radio station. Get what I'm saying, John?
I do, but I think Dave would probably make the argument that they're first and foremost an information station that happens to own 590 AM. And, if folks want to listen on AM, that's great. But I think Dave's money is probably going to be made by being a big, and again, this is week 1 of their operation. So
I understand, but what I'm saying is
but they should put radio first. That's the thing. If you're a radio station, you should focus on having great audio and not so much sitting on a fancy schmancy couch.
Right, exactly. I
get it, and I think that they're probably professionals that probably want to have a professional look. I think it's amazing that they actually put their shows live on YouTube. I think that's awesome. I think any radio station worth their salt considers doing that. And, it's week 1 for them.
By the way, you're listening to Westplex Talk, and we've also been considered the Pepper Station. So,
well, you cause more reactions than just sneezing, Brad.
Okay. Okay, we didn't talk about the KJP thing with her book that she's now declared herself independent, okay?
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? And I'm surprised we haven't talked about Elon versus Donald.
Which is really funny. Okay, have you seen this story of Charlamagne the God? And he goes after KJP.
No, I haven't seen that.
He slices and dices her. Let me see if I can actually get the audio, play the audio here. Now, if you know who Charlamagne the God is, he is a black guy, right? And what's interesting about
that's a good way to describe him, a black guy. And he's on the Breakfast Club, which is a popular hip hop show, based out of New York.
Right. Let me see if I can play the audio. Okay, here. Let me see if I can do this real quick. Okay, it'll probably run an ad before I try to play the audio. Let me see if I can hit it in here. Here, play this. Okay, hold on a minute. I don't think he says anything nasty. I hope not. Okay, round and round and round the little thing goes. Will it stop? Nobody knows. Okay, it's not going to play. Okay,
can you send it to Vic, and then Vic could play it, and then we could live stream Vic doing a live stream?
Here we go. So, hold on.
I respect her being independent because I feel like if you're black in this country, you shouldn't be loyal to any party. You should only be voting your interests. You should only be voting for politicians who are implementing legislation and policies for your communities and your people. And if you ask me, none of these parties have done enough for us to be screaming, we Republican, our Democrat, so independent is the way to go. But when it comes to her in particular, I'm probably going to read the book, but nobody wants to hear from anyone who got up there and lied for the Biden administration.
Wow! Did you hear that? Is that like the quote of the day? I mean,
yeah, and obviously as time goes on, people are going to be able to point to more and more instances and press conferences and build supercuts where she's clearly lying.
Right. I mean, remember the one where she says, "Oh, I can't keep up with him." Yeah, right. That would be like me saying if I met like some college track star and I said, "Oh my God, he can't keep up with me." You know what I mean? It would be like,
yeah. I love that on Fox News when they were talking to Senator Eric Schmidt, they had some B-roll of Biden at an event with Kamala. I'm guessing it was like a year ago. And I love the Fox News clip because it showed Biden looking completely befuddled by whatever was going on in front of him. And then there appeared to be a black guy in a dress. Like, I'm guessing he's some kind of, it was a cross-gender thing or maybe a Pride Month thing or something. But Biden looked like he had no idea where he was.
Well, remember, Josh Hawley dropped the bombshell on what Hannity, was it this week or last week, where he said that he had friends that were Secret Service agents on the Biden detail and he'd get lost in his closet in the White House?
Yeah, which in his defense, Brad, depending on how big the closet is, it might get turned around.
Right. I mean, those of us who live like in NoCo, a closet to us is a foot deep and 2 feet wide, whereas the White
House, it's a real walk-in.
Right.
Yeah.
The White House could be like you open up the door and you go, hello, 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 hello.
It could be almost like a Shelley bar palatial kind of shoe room. Where she's got her own closet just for her shoes,
John, I've seen pictures of her closet before. I've never been in her closet before, but I've seen pictures of a closet. She could house 30 immigrants from Mexico.
I bet she could. Now, they'd have to be kind of skinny. They couldn't be like the Chinese guy who's complaining about citizenry. But yeah, she could probably house a few there.
Okay, John, we've overstayed our welcome. It's time for Armstrong and Getty. I will miss you tomorrow and Sunday. I don't know how I'm going to make it through the weekend, but we'll talk again on Monday, okay?
I'll see you then, Brad.